Having finished up the book of John, the Gospel, last week we are talking about the first letter of John, 1 John, this week. And like the Gospel of John, 1 John uses a lot of very simple terms and simple language, and yet the concepts are deeply profound, much more profound than we would be able to explain in this short video. So let's jump in and talk about a few things. The beginning of the book, the first 4 verses or so, lays out that this book, this letter, is about Jesus, the message that those like John received from Jesus in the flesh and now are passing on to others. And the message revolves around 2 very simple truths about Jesus and about God. And notice that language is really one and the same in the letter of 1 John. The first being that God is light in chapter 1, verse 5. This combines the ideas of Genesis 1 and light coming out of darkness as God speaks it into existence in the beginning of creation, and the statement of Jesus in the book of John that I am the light of the world. And so John says this is the message. God is light, and in him is no darkness. There is a purity of light, of truth, that God is the source of, and that cannot be and is never compromised. And so, if we are to have fellowship with God, who is light, John urges his readers to walk in the light as he is in the light, not to walk in darkness, not to go on sinning, but to, chapter 3, purify himself as he is pure. Anyone that wants to be like Jesus now, anyone that is hoping to be transformed by Jesus when he returns, you purify yourself as he is pure. You walk in the light. That means keeping the commandments, walking in truth. And notice the connection between truth and light. In chapter 2, he says, part of walking in truth is admitting and recognizing your sin and not acting like or pretending like we have no sin. Instead, devoting our lives to walking in the truth, the light, the commandments of Jesus, and trusting in his blood to cleanse us. Okay, speaking of, the other thing that God is in the book of 1 John is love. God is love, chapter 4 and verse 8. He is the essence of love. And that idea of love was, again, heavily emphasized in the Gospel of John, especially on that night that he had his final conference with his disciples. Greater love has no man than this, than to lay down his life for his friend. That's exactly what God has done in sacrificing himself on the cross. And so, if we again are to have fellowship, to abide in the love of God, we must love him absolutely, but also love one another. And so in chapter 4, he will say, if you can't love your brother or your sister whom you can see, you cannot love God who you cannot see. This is such an important a piece of walking with God in light and in love that too often we take for granted, which is that we have to love each other. We have to love others in the body of Christ, love our brothers, love our sisters, and not just, he says in that same chapter, love in word, but in deed and in truth. This is not just something we say, but we in the sharing of our goods, in helping and serving and washing the feet, going back to the image of John chapter 13, we love selflessly. This is the commandment, chapter 2, a new commandment. It's old in that we've always known to love our neighbor, but it's new in that we have a new standard to rise up to, which is the love that Jesus showed selflessly and sacrificially. And then finally, maybe putting all this together, there is a clear warning in the book of 1 John not to be led astray or to be sucked into the world. And so in chapter 2, he talks about not loving the world or the things in the world. He also talks about in chapter 3, those that are trying to deceive, those are leading people astray by saying that Jesus is something else. I guess that's actually still chapter 2. And then chapter 5, the last message of the book, the last word is keep yourself from idols. We have a wonderful God, Jesus, who is love, who is light. Why would we seek after anything else? Why would we be tempted, drawn away by what the world has to offer when it is so much less than Jesus? And why would we make up a God for ourselves that is so inferior to that of the God that we serve, a God who is love and a God who is light? Instead, let us walk in light, Let us walk in love and have fellowship, abide with God and with Jesus now and forever. That's the message of 1 John, and we'll do more writings of the Apostle John in next week. Thank you so much.